Deepwoken. Known for its polished and engaging combat, huge world to explore, diverse build crafting, but most importantly, at least for this video, the lore. However, there's one part of the Deepwoken lore that's just always somewhat baffled me, and that would be the story surrounding Kaido, aka the Dread Serpent. I think most people would consider this to be the most underdeveloped boss of the game, and I'd be inclined to agree with that. Since its inception, this boss has been fought with nothing but pure cheese, and its mechanics have always just been complete jank. It's not uncommon to see Kaido fling across the map, and as for actually engaging with the boss, the main way of fighting Kaido for the longest time was just to sit behind it in this weird sweet spot where it basically is impossible for it to hit you, and you just wail on it, and it wasn't really fun or engaging at all, but it was the only really reliable way to fight him, which they actually just recently apparently patched out. So now the only real way to interact with the boss, I believe, is just to get his ass stuck on some weird geometry and hurl cannonballs. Bruh. Real engaging fight, huh? So it's safe to say this is probably the most underdeveloped boss of the game, and you might not be surprised that this also somewhat carries over to the lore, but not in the way that you'd think. It's in this weird middle ground where they're like, oh yeah, I got a sick banger backstory idea for this boss, it's gonna be so cool and awesome. And yeah, they wrote that story, it just doesn't actually explain anything or make sense or is cohesive at all. It genuinely feels like fanfic, and that's not to say the lore is like badly written, it just feels like fanfic because of how little it genuinely has to do with the game and how little it actually explains. So with the intro out of the way, let's get into actually explaining what the lore is for this boss. So essentially, there are these big immortal worm dragon creatures called Edenkites. They basically live forever and are super smart, having lots of knowledge stored in the old noggin. Likewise, this drew many people to attempt communion with them. But the Edenkites usually respond with some Dark Souls level riddles that are basically incomprehensible. Still though, people would learn things from them about times before the rise of civilization and whatnot, and overall things were just kind of fine, but not really, because most of the people of Lumen were not doing so hot. So there's this thing called the tides, where the ocean is essentially swallowing the entire world. Case in point, Seltor, the city that sunk into the sea, one of the first great drownings, causing the death of maybe thousands, and also from the sea rose hellish creatures from the depths. Originally, Sharkos were the only creatures spotted, very rarely, and as time passed, all sorts of depths creatures began terrorizing the surface regularly. And there was really no clear way to do anything about all of this shit happening, with tides rising, swallowing islands, and all these creatures coming out, so everybody was kind of just stuck dealing with this bullshit. So yeah, people wanted some answers and maybe some guidance or just something. Enter the Mad Steward. This guy was a scholar and one of those people that really wanted some answers about the tides. Now, the big brainiac Edenkites, they lived up in the freezing north, so Mr. Stewart had to take a big journey, eventually meeting one and communing with it. So this next passage I'm going to be citing is from the lore book, Lumen's Folklore, Volume North. As the steward made communion with the elder Edenkite, he asked quite plainly, "How do we stop the rising of the tides, the submerging of our seas?" The Edenkite answered simply, "The rise and fall of humanity is inevitable, and to deny it, to fight against it, is to fight against the forces attempting to free you from your mortal shackles. The end of a life is a gift, not to you who is called to refuse it." So yeah, safe to say, Mr. Mad Steward was not really vibing with this response per se. In fact, bro crashes out on Edenkite. He uses the Ardor Murmur, the only thing capable of wounding an Edenkite, apparently, and slays it. And at the time, he was feeling a little hungry, you know, tummy rumbling. He kind of let the intrusive thoughts win. Yeah, no, he fucking ate him. He ate the Edenkite. More specifically, he ate the heart, hoping it would bestow on consumption the vast knowledge of their kind. And to be fair, he was right. That did happen. But So apparently, normal people are too weak to handle the harsh, depressing truth of the world. Some real edgy shit. So Mr. Stewart gets real sad. He's filled with an infinite amount of dread as he's overcome with the vast, detrimental knowledge of the Edenkite. And so yeah, obviously this like fucks him up a little. Just a little. So he turns into this. Apparently his appearance is meant to resemble some sort of twisted or corrupted Edenkite, which is why he looks like a long dragon type of thing. But don't get me wrong, he did not turn into an Edenkite. In fact, it's something completely new. It's supposed to be like a twisted version of an Edenkite, like a mockery of it. So it's stated in the lore book that he became the first Dread Serpent. Roll credits, everybody. That's it. Wait. Cut. You said the first Dread Serpent? Yeah, that's what it says in the lore book. So yeah, there's more than one. There's tons of them. Every time we fight one in the game, that's not the same one. That's a new Dread Serpent. So how the heck are there so many Dread Serpents, and are people just continuously guzzling down Edenkite hearts? No, that doesn't make sense, because at the end of the lore book it states, today, scholars still debate on if Edenkites exist. They ruminate on if they simply fled or had gone extinct over the years of the tides. So people don't even know if the Edenkites are still around. People think they may be extinct. Nobody has really seen Edenkites around lately because they didn't really take the Stewart's actions very well. Suffice it to say, him munching down on one of the kind sorta soured relations between them. So they just completely got the fuck out of there. They don't want nothing to do with people anymore. So if people aren't going ham on Edenkite hearts all the time, how the fuck are these Dread Serpents just popping around, just appearing everywhere in the Void Sea? So the rest of them are normal people that turned into Dread Serpents, just like the original. But unlike the original, they did not eat Edenkite hearts. So apparently, they're just people in the Void Sea who are overcome with a lot of dread. Excuse me, what? So, okay, I can see the connection somewhat. Both versions turned into a Dread Serpent because of overwhelming dread, because the first one had the infinite knowledge that just kind of like fucked them over because the puny human brain couldn't handle it. And the other ones are just people in the Void Sea that just like a little dreadful. Okay. But if that's the case, why was the Mad Steward the first Edenkite? If people can just be overcome with dread enough to turn into an Edenkite, how has that never happened before the Steward? Even further, the reason the Dread Serpents are sent to grant Ardor the Murmur upon defeating it is because the Steward used Ardor to slay the Edenkite to like eat his heart and become the Dread Serpent. But that's not what the other Dread Serpents did, so why do all of the Dread Serpents give you Ardor when you beat them? Even the wiki admits they have no idea how this works. And I'm not even sure if this lore for the rest of the Edenkites is canon. I just learned that from Rayconter's telling of the lore, because I can't find a lore book on this. There's literally just one. There's just this one little fanfic lore book that is in the game, the one mention of Dread Serpents in the whole thing. It's like they didn't even think about it. But generally Rayconter's pretty credible and does his due diligence, so if that's his theory on it, I'm generally inclined to trust that. And I mean, be honest, it is the best thing we have to go on right now because the Deepwoken devs are giving us absolutely fuck all nothing. But even if this lore about the other Dread Serpents turning into Dread Serpents because of overwhelming dread, even if this wasn't canon, it presents even more of an issue, because if there genuinely is no explanation for how all these other Dread Serpents spawned into place, it begins to beg the question, why write some fanfic-esque story about the first guy to ever turn into one, and offer no connection to all the other ones? And in your little fanfic thing, you mentioned that he's the first one. Why? You could have just left out that he was the first one. Like, that is literally one of the last lines. He became the first Edenkite. You could have left that out, and the lore would make a lot more sense. It would. You just fucked it up with one line. Like, I'm not exaggerating. It really comes off as fanfic or like somebody trying to write a backstory for an OC or something. And out of this huge lore book, it provides little to nothing about the actual lore in regards to the Dread Serpents. Like, we learn more about the Edenkites than we do Dread Serpents, and Edenkites are supposed to be exponentially more mysterious than Dread Serpents. In fact, arguably it confuses us more about them. if this lore book didn't exist, I'd argue Dread Serpents would be far less confusing than they are right now. Now, mind you, this is the only lore book that even mentions them. This entire lore surrounding this is just a complete clusterfuck. The boss itself is and has always been a complete clusterfuck. I'm just waiting for the day that they actually do something about it, but instead they decide to patch out the only remotely somewhat fun and manageable way of fighting it, but now you have to kill it in the most doo-doo unfun ways imaginable. Get it stuck somewhere and hurl cannonballs. You know, personally, I think the solution is actually make a playable and interactable boss fight. Like Layer 2, we got the best bosses in Layer 2. Personally, I think Chaser is the most fun boss in the entire game, and I would say Etheron is second. Layer 2 has the best bosses, and I'm really excited for Layer 3 because the Death Slayers always cook with the bosses, man. Like we got Enmity in Layer 1, we got Chaser and Etheron in Layer 2. It's peak. So I'm really excited for Layer 3 for that reason. But the bosses on the surface are just so neglected. They're so doo-doo. I mean, we have like, I think Duke kind of sucks. Ferryman is good. Maestro's good, but like the rest of them just suck. Every server's boss is so neglected. But like, about the Dread Serpents, we still really have no lore at all explaining the connection between them. Like, literally one lore book is all we need to explain the connection between the first Dread Serpent and all the rest of them. But apparently they didn't think about that. They just wanted to write a fanfic and didn't care about if it actually made sense. I genuinely don't even think that they thought that far. Like, I don't even think that the devs themselves know the connection between them yet. So they're either gonna keep ignoring it forever, or they're just gonna make something up on the spot, which honestly, I'm hoping for the latter, because having nothing at all is just so weird, because we have such a detailed story about this one guy who turned into a Dread Serpent in a very unique way, and not at all explaining the connection between the rest of them. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, this just feels like fanfic. Like, whose OC is this? Bruh. Anyways, I think I've yapped enough about this. I'm pretty sure I got it all out of me. I would like to, at this point, shout out Hermes Metal, probably the best Deepwoken lore YouTuber out there. So if you haven't seen their channel and are interested in the lore, I wholeheartedly recommend it, because I've learned so much about the lore personally from these videos, and they also inspire me to go off as well on my own and read a lot of things and dig into the wiki. So it is really a great resource to keep up with the lore. I don't think I'll ever be able to match that level of peak content, so please go watch him. But if you want to see more videos like this from me, let me know in the comments. Only about 5% of you guys are subscribed, so y'all gotta get on it. On top of that, you know the deal. Leave a like, hit the bell, all the things I'm supposed to say so the algorithm likes me. We also have a Discord. I'm making a Deepwoken and Rogue Lineage inspired Roblox game, and I post updates there a lot. So if you're interested, go check that out. But yeah, anyways, that's about it. So see ya.